Methods allow you to make your code more readable and allow you to interact with the objects you create. Methods are inherently linked to the class that they are created in and the objects that use them. When I talk more about classes and objects, they will begin to make more sense, but until then, think of methods like functions. They will have inputs and outputs. And just a side note too, any code that I will show in this video will be based around Java. However, these ideas apply to other object-oriented languages as well. Let's talk about what a method signature is. Method signatures are a part of how the method is defined and what it can do. First, it defines what can use your method. These are known as access modifiers in static declaration. The most common access modifiers are public versus private. Public allows other classes to directly use the method through the use of an object. Private methods, however, only let the class that the method is in directly use it. Static methods are a little complicated, but a good way to think about it is that the static method belongs to the class and not the object. If it doesn't quite make sense yet, don't worry. It is a hard concept that I will be explaining in a future video in more depth. These are probably the hardest parts to understand about methods. Your method will have a return type as well. This just specifies what type of data will be returned by your method. This is just any data type, including both primitive data types like int, char, boolean, but also including data types related to classes, including ones that you create yourself. There is also a return type known as void. I will touch on this later, but the idea of a void method is a method that has no return type. You also give a name to your method too. You can name your method practically anything. However, the method names have typically the same naming conventions as variables do. But, like I said, that is just convention to make code more consistent and more readable. Finally, the method signature defines what is passed into your method. Essentially, it is what the input is. You can input any type of variable into a method so it can be used. You can also choose to not have any input in the method if it is not needed. Let's take this example method. This method takes in two integer values, a and b, and returns the sum of those two numbers. Take a look at the code and see if you can piece it apart. This first part is the method signature, the part that we just discussed. We will break this apart further later. Here is the method body. Similar to loops and conditionals, the body of a method is defined by the curly braces. Anything inside of it makes up what the method does. Note that the stuff inside of the method body is indented. This is not necessary, but it is another syntax convention that makes your code more readable. The same went for conditionals and loops. Here is the access modifier. Because this method is public, any class that utilizes an object from the class that the method comes from can directly use the method through the use of an object. Also, notice that this method is non-static because it does not have the keyword static in the method definition. Here's the method's return type. In this case, it is int. This makes sense because if we want to return the sum of two ints, it would make most sense if the method returns an int. Here's the method's name. Your method name should be descriptive enough that it makes sense what the method does. The name addNumbers makes sense for a method that returns the sum of two numbers. Here we see what is being inputted into the method. These are known as parameters. The parentheses define what is being passed in. Notice how you can pass in multiple values by separating them by a comma. Also notice that there are two parts to each parameter. There is the data type and the variable. This allows you to be explicit about what your method takes in. This way we know that anything passed into this method will be of type int. Here inside the method body we have the return statement. All methods with a return type must have a return statement. Take note that the return statement must return the same type as the return type we defined above. Finally, there are methods with a void return type. Notice how in the method signature, where the return type should be, there is the keyword void. This defines the method as a void return type, meaning that it shouldn't return any data. This type of method will end when the last line of code inside the body is finished, or you can choose to still have a return statement if you ever want to end it early. And yes, you can have a return statement for a void method, but it shouldn't be returning anything. It would just read return with a semicolon after to end the line. And that's all you need to know to understand the very basics of methods. If you enjoyed it, feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.